Hello, Pete. How are you?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. So, another episode of Decanted.
hmm
And there's been a few things in the news the last couple of weeks around what Sam Altman's about. And obviously, Elon Musk's Neuralink, I think that's what you call it,
Yeah,
about putting the chips in the humans. And apparently, ChatGPT or, 5 version 5 launched and it was quite flat. Actually, it wasn't what they were intending. It wasn't as much fanfare as some of the other models that have been released. But apparently Sam is also working on something called Merge Labs, um, which is ridiculous title. Merging humans and
yeah,
robots. Stop the world I want off at this point, to be
I,
honest with you.
I'm with you. Yeah,
But it does bring around a few questions about interface, and we have talked extensively about interface and how the big opportunity with AI is probably interfaces. But like, I want to go back to that. What do you think about Merge Labs? Would you be up for getting the chip placed inside your brain?
absolutely not. I think it's insane. And I think the world that these guys live in, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, billionaires, anything in life's possible. Create some creative thinking, let's say, where can you really put a chip in someone's brain and create this human machine interface? Yeah, but like it's the stuff out of movies, really. Like it's not meant for prime time reality, at least not in my opinion anyway. And there's going to be some crazy people queuing up to try it out as well. But for me, like that's just taking tech too far.
Okay, I'll let them know that you're off the list of willing participants.
Yeah.
Anyway, it does bring on to something else that I'm excited about, and I know you are, and that is the interface play. I think, do I enjoy interacting with computers? Not really. Um, I can see, and we're building some projects around voice, for instance, how you could talk or send a message or use a microphone or talk even into Alexa, and it kicks off a series of tasks. You know, that is the interface, not a keyboard, not a chat screen, not even looking on a computer. I should be able to say something into this microphone saying, I need me to go and get a list of 100 people, customers that fit this criteria, and send them all this message, and bam, 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 bam. That's possible right now. What do you think of that? What are you seeing in terms of developments there?
I don't know that it will be as revolutionary as we think. So we've already designed some software that's pretty hands off, even in terms of pay here. Once you set up your pay here links and put them on your website or whatever, the process is fairly automatic. You're not having to log in and view the dashboard and do whatever. Like you've set it up once. It's now a system there that works and people can use, your customers can pay, and you'll get email alerts or whatever every time a payment comes through or fails or whenever you need to take an action. And I think it's similar to that. These AI agents, you're just being able to take more and more tasks and kind of push them into the background and less reliance on logging in and performing certain actions. So, like, I agree with you. Anything that can be done like that should be done like that. If it doesn't require human involvement anymore, then great, happy days. But I think that it's maybe not going to be as revolutionary as we think, at least not for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Because I think these things where there's obviously OpenAI have gone into that pendant thing that you stick on and it's always listening, always recording, all of that. There's privacy concerns there. There's if that becomes mainstream tech, governments are going to make laws around where and when you can use that, when it needs to be turned off, all of those sorts of things. Like you're probably not going to be able to have that switched on an airplane, and all these weird rules are going to come up. But at the same time, I don't see a world where we get rid of iPhones in the next 5, 10 years.
It would be a great world if we did, but I think
Maybe, but what's going to replace it?
books and music and nature, bottles of wine and cheese boards. And no technology. But I think what we have seen, which has been very evident, is the adoption of AI. Like, if we're talking about chat interfaces and getting rid of computers, we are seeing industries that we're working in and doing projects in, they aren't even accepting using AI through the means that are there at the minute. Whether that's just a chat, it's not being adopted. It's not being adopted at all. It's not. People aren't just jumping into this. Sure, they're not. It's not me just saying that. Like, it's we're talking to people, and it's coming back to, like, have people went too far with AI already. People are looking for small tasks that maybe took a long time that could be automated in a very simple way. They're not looking for this kind of revolutionary side that you've talked about, where it's just going to change everything. People aren't. They don't understand that. They don't trust that. They don't want that right now.
Yeah, big time. And I think that's the key, is what, out of all these AI trials and AI adoption that's going on across the world, what's actually working, and it is really niche specific workflows that have been mapped out, and there's some kind of compliance on either end that it's actually working. It's not just left in a dark room completely alone with zero compliance. It's specific small workflows. It's not this AI agent is coming in and taking over this entire job of a human. There's still human in the loop and approval processes effectively.
I think it's generational too. I think students come out of university now. It's like the products that we're building. We're building native AI products. It's already, the stats are out there showing that products that have been there for 10 years that have bolted AI on are not. Nothing's really changing. But native AI products can make a difference. And I think it's the same for the generations. People at university now, this is what they've kind of not grown up with, but they're using this. So I think when they come into the workplace, there's going to be a revolution at that stage. But then again, you're going to have different, generations like, no, this is the way we do it. And are they going to put them into that box? That could be the possibility. But I think there'll be a bigger shift when the younger generations are growing up with AI natively using it. Mm-hmm. There could be a turning point then. But then again, they're fighting against the norm.
Yeah, I think so. And I think as well, there's maybe some danger there also of these people who are growing up with AI, that they rely on it too much.
Totally.
And we see how often it gets things wrong or needs correction. Or I find myself, like, many, many times a week having to step in and tell it that it's wrong. And I know for 100% that it's wrong. And it still argues back with you a bit, and then eventually it kind of gives way. But, like,
do you get angry? Do you get angry with it?
Big time. Oh yeah. I'm not a person for, like, swearing much or anything like that, but I get very angry with AI whenever it makes mistakes.
As they say, it's okay until it arrives at your door in 10 years' time.
Yeah, exactly. Terminator comes through the door.
You talk to me, chat.
Here's a list of everything you ever said to me.
It could well happen. The problem is the reliance on AI, and again, there's studies of, we're in an interesting place. We're in the middle of AI, but we're skeptical. We've always been skeptical of technology. People that anybody that's ever met us know that we sit in an interesting place where we love building technology, but at the same time we like world without technology and greenfield thinking as well. But the reliance is the interesting place. We were talking about me doing some of the cooking, cooking some recipes, and I'm like going on to AI every time. My brain's not storing some of that information, and it's the same for, like, I think a lot of the education and what students are learning, what anybody's learning. There's no brain recall, it's AI recall. It's like they're going to ask the AI every time, what was that fact? They don't have to store it. Why should they? And, like, I think automatically a lot of people they'll not store it because they're like, we don't need to. We don't need, kind of goes back to the calculator. We don't need to learn how to do long, equations.
Long division, yeah.
because the calculators, I don't need to do it because it's already there. And I think it's like a million times worse for this AI, and people are just going to be like, it's always there, it's always on, which is great until some, nefarious character, bad actor turns it off. Like at the minute, if somebody turns the power grid off or even water off, it's devastating consequences. And I think, AI in the future could be again like somebody turns off, a few data centers, and everything goes to hell.
And especially in its current form, where these models are massive. Like, I don't think most normal people understand how huge these models and these data sets and the compute required to run them is. But like, we're talking entire data centers needed for these models to live in. So an internet connection outage, suddenly you've lost your AI. So if you're reliant on that, then you're screwed. You can't do anything. So if you're one of these new school vibe coder developers, let's say for instance, and you drop internet connection, well, you're not getting any work done. Like if you're a coder, you can still type away, build stuff on your local machine, build stuff on an airplane while you're flying. But these new things, the reliance on them is you also need internet and fast internet, because I've tried using these when you're in a supermarket or things like that, and you're only maybe getting 3G. That just don't work.
Yeah.
So the reliance on high speed internet, always on connection, is even more so if you build your life around AI.
Is the infrastructure there if everybody started using this to the capabilities that people that OpenAI and Elon Musk want people to use it? Is the infrastructure even there in a place like Northern Ireland or anywhere? The electricity, the power grid.
I think quite possibly the infrastructure for the consumers is there, but how can we even know what the infrastructure is like on the data center side when all of these organizations are bankrolled by VCs? They could be burning money for even just us using it right now, and we don't know.
Yeah. There's no like sustainable business model in place, which is quite terrifying. The one thing that was interesting came out a few weeks ago. I'd love your thoughts on it from development point of view. Is the kind of the open source models that you can download onto a phone, or AI in a box, which we've talked about. Could change a few people's thoughts, because like there's a lot of the power that would be needed. Say a law practice that has documentation and everything. Like a small model should be able to handle looking up details, making amendments, and live in a box within their office and not have a connection to the outside world. Like, is that going to maybe change? Is there opportunities there? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think like the improvement in those models is one of the big areas where, as those get smaller and faster and require less compute or less storage, that eventually they'll get to a stage where they're good enough. Like in 5 years' time, they might be as good as GPT-5, and you're able to run it locally on your phone or your MacBook. That's the interesting kind of place, I think, where these things are localized. You're using your own compute. We don't need all these data centers. They're almost like peer-to-peer. And I think that's where things really start to open up in terms of the usage of these.
Do you think people, like Model 5 is out, but like I could probably live with the tasks that I would do if I was to download AI as a box or something on like an earlier version? It's because like the task that I'm asking doesn't need it to be, or is that, or like how do, what are the differences do you see? And like, does it need to be an up-to-date model, or could be a more simple version for
So I think
someone?
with like GPT-5, for instance, as far as I'm aware, it's actually faster and cheaper than GPT-4.
Okay.
So it's not just improvements in terms of how much smarter it is. They've also compressed the intelligence down into a more lightweight version,
Okay.
which is the big kind of improvement. So it means Not really that it's expensive for us to use. Like your ChatGPT subscription's still $20 a month. But in terms of overall resources used and all of that sort of stuff, it's faster and cheaper for OpenAI to run, or from the same perspective of when that trickles down into local models, it's faster and cheaper. So I don't think it's necessarily about like, oh, we could use the older one. The newer one is actually smaller, more efficient, and faster, and requires less compute. So you're actually better off using that. But that's where the advancements come along in this stuff, is that it offers more compression and more speed up with each version.
And to say I have a law practice and I'm putting all of my documentation into this localized version, it can read from the internet but not push. It can all be set up that way, I take it. Like, so like say I'm like, check my documentation but go out and see if it's relevant to any changes in legislation, but like it's still, that's possible.
Yeah, so it's the same even when we're building with the current models. So when we're building with the likes of GPT-4 or GPT-5, when we're building with those as a developer, they basically come with the model and no tools. So they come without access to the internet. That's all stuff that ChatGPT have built into their applications or their website to give it extra tools, to give it memory, to give it web access. When we take these tools as developers, they come without all of that stuff. So you don't have memory, you don't have web access, you have to do extra stuff to handle file uploads and all of that. So you're essentially getting like a model in a box that can't do anything dangerous unless you build the tools for it to do those. So when you're building those tools, you're giving it capabilities. You can give it an internet access tool if you want or not.
Because I think like it's questions that I'm getting asked a lot by people, and just it brings to another kind of discussion, is that trust is the new currency in this AI age. Because the amount of people that I've talked to, and they're like, oh yeah, that's really cool, that could certainly save us time, and then it's like, but we're not allowed to use it. I've talked to quite a few people in public sector, particularly around Evermind notes, where they're sitting in meetings for hours and hours every week, making notes and then having to to type them up and then send them emails. Whereas we have a tool that can do that, instantly, but they're not allowed to use it. Why they're not allowed to use it? Because we don't really know enough about it. And there seems to be this trust issue, and I know how it's developed. It's like it's if people don't understand how something works, they don't trust it. And I think it's like, if you go back even to the London Underground, when it first came in, tapping the cards, like people didn't trust contactless, but then they started using it on the Underground, and it actually brought adoption. And I think it needs to be that we're not there yet in terms of AI, in terms of that, like, okay, we can trust this. Our information isn't just shared with anyone. And like, face it, like a lot of people wouldn't give a shit about your information, but there seems to be this like, oh my gosh, this, if people find out our information, if somebody wanted to get your information, they could do it now with or without AI. Like, yeah, like it's not be like two ways about it. What do you think?
I think some of that is real and okay, and some of that is just people being shallow-minded or too naive, maybe, or I don't know. One example is, like, I have a friend in New York City, and he works for an investment bank, and the bank's stance, I'm not sure, I haven't spoken to him in a few weeks, but the bank's stance on that is just like zero AI. You're not allowed to use it. Our code base cannot be indexed by AI or sent anywhere. And from some points, like, I can agree with that, because ultimately there's no real intelligence in this AI. It's just repeating words and
pattern matching
and guessing ahead what the next word is, essentially. There's no real intelligence there. It's not actually thinking. It's just taking the whole dump of the internet and all human data and smartly guessing based on predictions. And whilst that provides a lot of smart, capable stuff, it's not actually thinking for itself. And the danger there is that these organizations or larger enterprises in particular can say this thing could make mistakes. The danger that I see is that these organizations also don't recognize how big mistakes humans can make.
Yeah, yeah.
And that ultimately there becomes a kind of crossing over point where, yes, the AI is a risk, but so are humans. And ultimately, at a certain point, the AI is going to make less risks than humans, and therefore you should plug it in.
Totally.
But
If
because it's not something, as you say, that they understand humans, they know humans can make mistakes, they know X, Y, Z, they can comprehend that, but they can't comprehend the AI, so therefore they just rule it out and say no thanks.
well, like I mean, the amount of occasions that like we've seen that someone's like, "Oh, this program did something wrong," or like even even with pay here and the support, like, why has it done this? Like, it usually is human error. it's rarely, if at all, it is the program. It's human error. So, like, I mean, as you say, they're probably it's well past that point that it will make less mistakes if you were to put a human in.
For a bunch of tasks, especially well-defined tasks or tasks that have been done many times before, I think so things like doing accountancy or bookkeeping, that's a practice very well understood, documented all across the internet. AI can predict that very well, very highly. Probably do a way better job right now today with GPT-5 than a human bookkeeper. And the only difference is like blue sky thinking, a process that's new, something that hasn't been done before. Can you turn around and ask AI how best to wire a Neuralink chip into someone's head? Probably not, because it's not documented anywhere. It's never been done before. It's not going to give you a good answer.
It lacks that creative thinking, doesn't it? Like that spark, that because like a lot of people in creative industries were quite worried at the start, but now I think they're saying like, and I was talking to a branding agency last week, and they're like, it's great. It's still not coming out with stuff that we're able to do. Like, we can put in the culture of a company, the branding, the voice, everything, and it's just going to give out, well, here's what you should do based on things before. It's not saying like, make this totally different. Whereas that group is still able to do it, and they have as much work as they ever did.
Hmm.
And like, I
But
mean,
are
go
they
ahead.
are they saying that from a perspective of AI can't do the real creative thinking, or are they saying we don't use AI at all?
They've tried, and they've just like the output's not. But then again, you're like, you have to ask the right questions to get the right output. But like I've seen from using it, like if I'm trying to think of something totally different, it gets you, it gets me thinking about wider things, but it still doesn't get me to the point where I have to sit back and think, which is good. But then again, people that are relying on this might not, they might be happy as far as it takes them, and we might then lose that. Well, everybody's
Hmm.
starting to talk about like, the last 20 or 10% in terms of the vibe coding, but like thought process, it's not getting you the last 20%.
Yeah. But I would argue that if I was a branding agency or something like that, yes, the overall theme and brand or whatever, you can come up with something unique and cool as a human. You can create your mood boards, you can create all this stuff. But then let's say you want to create 50 different variations of Facebook ads based off of your brand. I would say that's where you can plug AI in. You can feed it the brand and say, give me
100%.
50 ads, and it's going to do a good job of it because the input's well defined.
Yeah, you've created
Hmm.
that initial spark that it can then go off. So you think industries then that are it's repetitive tasks, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the low lying fruit, really.
Yeah, anything well defined and repetitive seems to be the sweet spot for where this AI can work. So, bookkeeping is one. You've got a whole bunch of data on various transactions. You have some rules, data around your rules of what way you should categorize things. You throw this all into a smart agent and it categorizes them for you. And yeah, that's where, like, that's one of the tasks where I've seen real big kind of wins with AI essentially.
What, in terms of like the agents talking to agents, what do you think? What's happening there? Like obviously Stripe and everyone talking about these NCP, MCP servers and things like that. Like, do you trust that in terms of like two bots talking to each other and making a decision, or is it a predefined set of rules? So therefore, it's not really that much different than programs that have been written before.
For me, even agents talking to humans is still something that I think you need to take with a pinch of salt. So, like, we've seen the agents that have access to Twilio and can phone, and we've seen the agents calling a San Francisco restaurant, and the San Francisco restaurant is answering with another agent, and they're both talking on the phone. They both realize they're agents, and then they switch to this new form of communication where they start
Gibberlink.
speaking in dots. Like, it's insane. But at the same time, if they were speaking in English, there'd be a call recording. You could listen to it after. You would know, oh yeah, my reservation was booked and they took my credit card. But when it starts going agent to agent in their own wee language, who knows what they said to each other? You know, like that's where you lose the compliance side of things. And how can you trust something if there's no actual evidence or proof of it?
Yeah, because you're kind of locked out of that process. One thing, like talking to a good friend of ours recently, Chris McClelland, and he was talking about it's not as powerful because people are talking to it like they do to other humans. And I was like, wow, I hadn't thought about that, but he was totally right. He's absolute genius. He's like, you need to talk to it like you're talking to computers. So like developers get more out of it because they're talking to it like they know the language that it. It's like, humans have developed niceties. So like when I meet you in the morning, it's like, hi Pete, how are you? You know, asking you how your weekend was. We talk for a bit before we then get stuck in, whereas a computer would be like, this task now, 100
There,
emails today done. Yeah, it's like,
yeah, from using like I'm as a developer one of the first people to fully adopt AI as an assistant that you use every day. And you definitely pick up on all the forms of communication of what it prefers, what it doesn't, how to get the most out of it. And you're constantly learning and tweaking that as well. And especially whenever there's new model releases, you're maybe tweaking that even further based on what other people are saying to what ways to talk to this thing. Some people are recommending that you talk to it partially in code. That rather than writing paragraphs and paragraphs of English, you write it down as XML code and structure it all that way because it can read that faster and it can understand that better and easier. So more verbose input gives you more verbose output, and there's some truth in that also, but totally depends. I think the biggest thing is, and if anyone's looking to take as much advantage of AI as possible, give it as much context as you possibly can. And the fastest way of doing that is if you can get one of these apps that you can just hold a key down and speak, because you can speak so much faster than you can type, and you can dump a whole load of context into this thing. And that's where you get way better results out of it. More context, the better.
because like it's for me, it's night and day in terms of talking through GPT interface than when I then go and click the deep research button. I wish it was on all the time because like straight away it comes back with questions to set that context as you're talking about, and it's like, well, what is this for? What do you mean by that? And it's like a backwards and forwards. It's building that, and it's like the output that you get in that blows me away now. It really does.
Well, the output of the deep research is definitely better, but first of all, that type of interaction is something that you can do. And I've been doing for a long time, even without deep research. If you're prompting AI, you can ask it at the end, ask me questions to fill in the gaps in your knowledge that would make your response better. And it'll start by asking you a bunch of questions, and then it'll go and carry out the task, and you still get big level up from the standard kind of prompt, but not quite what the deep research one gives you.
It's kind of like ChatGPT is incredible and all, but there needs to be another interface on top of that. Similar, like pay here move, like that takes it. We can understand what you're trying to ask, but then formats it correctly, and then, as it says, is putting the correct prompts in. Like,
I think that's essentially where we'll get to in time, is with these multi-agent systems. Maybe that ChatGPT app will take your first input and run it through an agent to flesh it out more for you, and then it'll ask. It should be doing that already, to be honest. Like that. Why wouldn't it be doing that by now?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I think for me, things are moving fast, but they've kind of slowed down the last month a little bit. Out there in the world, in terms of macro environment, I feel like there's been a bit of like more people are talking about a bubble, and again, because there's a lot of money pumped into early stage things that now have been replaced by people like OpenAI, and like there's a lot of things that are going to maybe go pop, and people seeing the real value and the trust and how long it takes to sell into companies and set everything up. It does kind of seem to have stabilized. Do you feel that like a little bit in the last maybe month or so, or maybe it's just people are on vacation time, or
maybe? I think for me, like, the thing is, when these things first came out, there was all this hype and everyone's getting excited. We're constantly seeing like, oh wow, this new thing's come out, oh, this image generation tool, video generation tool, and with each one of those it unlocked kind of things that weren't possible before, and we got all this hype. There's still some of those things happening, but I feel like everyone's tired. Everyone's fed up with hearing about it. Like, we've been hearing about all these launches, all these cool AI tools now for the past 2 years, and who can keep up with that? You know what I mean? Crazy new technology happening every single week is what it feels like.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to get tired of that.
Yeah, I think we've got that point. It'll just be interesting to see the real businesses kind of power through that are adding value and, actually doing changes. But one more thing before we finish off, which I was amazed at, I don't know if you've seen it yesterday, where obviously we do like Apple, and the latest update in iMessages, you now do send later. I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that was the thing. Yeah,
I found it yesterday. When you go to add in a message, it came up send later, and I was able to pick the day and the time. I was like, this is sneaked out. I was like, try it. I guess I dreamt about it. No, I definitely didn't dream about it, but it's like there's certain, like we talked about that years ago, I could be, you're like, you need to send a message certain times. You can queue these things up now. I haven't done one yet, but just as another
that's
point of
interest. I like
interest.
using all the time.
Yeah, well, use Slack like Slack. I would use it, because I don't want to like pester you all the time. But yeah, well, I think that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. Things are moving too fast. Everybody slow down.
Yeah, I think, Go read a book by a river and have a glass of wine.
Yeah, that's our advice.
Exactly. Good to talk to you, dude.
You too.